This Bitcoin bull run is different. And it actually doesn't have anything to do with macroeconomics or the government or the 4-year cycle or the whatever. Like this Bitcoin bull run is different because you are different. You are different. Whether you've been stacking Bitcoin for 4 years, 5 years, 8 years, 1 year, 6 months, you are different today than you were when you first found Bitcoin, right? And that's why this Bitcoin bull run is different. My name is Brian. I've talked to thousands of Bitcoiners now about their journey really coming to terms with Bitcoin being better than fiat money and what that has done to the way they think about investing, the way they think about life, and the way they think about their personal financial goals, and the way they think about society and how society organizes. Because Bitcoin is an investment and there's a giant case for investment, but then Bitcoin also, if it replaces fiat money, will be world changing and already is world changing in a lot of ways. And so that's a lot. That's a lot, and it causes you to change as a person. And that might sound weird if you haven't been stacking Bitcoin for a long time or haven't really listened to the like philosophy side or kind of like society changing effects of the world switching from fiat to Bitcoin, right? But here's the thing. Because of all of that, I don't think it's actually even helpful to think about Bitcoin in terms of bull markets and bear markets, especially for an individual. I'm talking to individuals. And even more niche down than that, I'm talking to individuals that are between 25 and 55 years old and live in the United States. And I'm just going to say, like, have a regular W-2 job. Like, other people can benefit from this. Other people can benefit from it, but that's who I'm talking to. You know, and business owners and like people that freelance and do that stuff as well. But primarily, that's who I'm talking to because that's who I think about all the time. That's the lens that I think about personal finance, even removing Bitcoin from that about, right? And what's funny is that on YouTube, there hasn't really been a great like targeted Bitcoin personal finance message for that crowd. Like a lot of things that have to do with like living on Bitcoin were produced by kind of like OG Bitcoiners that honestly didn't live in the United States. And I think those were the accounts that got popular like very, very early, and that impacted the way that we kind of think about Bitcoin, right? And then what happened was you had another crowd that kind of joined, and the way that they thought about Bitcoin was again very much through the lens of the like world-changing impact of the world switching from fiat to Bitcoin, right? And so they talk about a hard money standard, talk about changing central banking, like a lot of that stuff, right? Which is all cool and interesting, all super cool and interesting. But again, when that's the primary lens that you look at it through, it then leads to kind of like weird personal finance decisions or weird little sayings that get repeated that aren't always like the greatest for your personal financial goals. And so then what happened is the next crowd that joined was kind of like institutional. Like you hear this word institutional, like in like that again doesn't super have a lot to do with the 25 to 55 year old like working person in America that is like hearing like trying to figure out investing and trying to figure out where can they store their labor so that it doesn't like get siphoned off by the impacts of like an expanding fiat money supply. Like that's and I think now there's been enough years of all the kind of philosophy and society parts of Bitcoin that I think it's time for just some cold hard tactics, like cold hard tactics on, okay, I'm with this thing of like Bitcoin's better than fiat money. I'm with the investment case of why it is. I'm with that the CAGR is like compound annual growth rate is like probably going to be pretty high, like year on year on year compared to like all other investment like choices out there. Totally. Like that's what I actually believe. Like that's a fundamental paradigm that my brain believes. And now it's like I've been constantly in search of just like tactics now on, but if I'm like mid 30s and have 2 kids and want to like continue to like level up in like a classic suburban sense, like how do you rationalize that with like this super passionate thing of like enjoying being part of a movement that I believe is like changing the world with Bitcoin being better than fiat, right? That's why this bull run's different. And I think it's different because there's enough people now that the amount of years stacking Bitcoin have stacked up. And I believe this question is like going to continue to be asked like more and more often. And honestly, because again, I've talked to so many Bitcoiners over the years, both in person, at meetups, through YouTube, in the comments, like all that stuff, over Twitter. Like Twitter worked great for networking about Bitcoin for a lot of years. It really changed with the For You page and the your follower graph doesn't see the posts as much anymore, and so it's really hard to have a connected conversation on there, which is one reason why I'm super thankful for YouTube, because this actually feels like where the connected conversation is now happening about Bitcoin and personal finance, and how like everything I'm talking about right now, how you can like what are the actual answers, and like swapping information with other people that are going through it themselves, right? But so something that has come up repeatedly when I would talk to people that are in their 40s or 50s and they had been stacking Bitcoin for 4 or 5 6 years, they would already tell me, this is 2-3 years ago, they would already tell me that they just couldn't really connect with the Bitcoin influencers that were spreading the majority of the information, because they're just day-to-day paradigm. Like when you're 55 years old, you have a 17-year-old, and you like are staring at the last like 9 years of your career before retirement, like that's way different than a 23-year-old macroeconomic charting expert like talking to you about how Bitcoin's going to replace central banking. Like that's just way different. And that's who blew up. Like those accounts blew up, which is great and awesome. And that's the power of the internet, right? And I really hope that that demographic was able to, and I believe they are like able to orange pill, a ton of Gen Z kids and like whatever. And I'm generalizing right now. I'm generalizing. But all of this does come back to like that core audience of kind of just like the classic like middle class of America, I think really does need a specific Bitcoin message for them. And it needs to be more about like, it comes down to having this like interchangeableness between Bitcoin and dollars is really what it comes down to. Because I think for a long time, it was like the never sell, buy the dip at all costs, live super frugally. Like that was the dominating message. And that just doesn't really match with the life goals of what a large part of that cohort is now facing, especially if they already did that. Like, and again, that advice can be fine for certain parts of your life. Like if you're in that part of your life, that's great and awesome. Do it. Like absolutely do it and execute on that. And if you're not in that stage anymore, it can be hard to switch up what tactics you're using, because we're all social creatures, and we all like to like the power of the internet is you can get very customized advice to people that are like directly in the stage of life that you are. And I'm just really excited to watch what this crowd of like Bitcoiners does, because I believe they are a big part of Bitcoin. Like people in their 30s, 40s, 50s today on a Bitcoin standard, or like with Bitcoin making up a large portion of their personal finances, are going to have way more impact on society than people 20 years ago that were in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. And that's because of how bad like fiat money is. And again, that demonstrates how fast I pivot back and forth between, again, the investment case and the kind of like moral, like philosophy, like sociology case, because it is connected. Like it's directly connected. And I think it's cool that people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s can have an impact on society in a way that also benefits them personally. Because I can't think of any other way that you can benefit yourself while also benefiting society when you're in those like prime working years and taking care of your kids' years. Like it's all the like becoming a politician and like working on nonprofits and all that stuff. Like that's always, it's kind of like assumed that that's what you do once you're kind of like at the second half of your career, or you've built up influence over like a long amount of working years. But I think Bitcoin is going to accelerate your ability to have an influence early, and it's going to accelerate your ability to like experience financial freedom like earlier than you would have been able to on a fiat standard.